Welcome to Nice and Blunt. It is finally week 1 of the NFL season. Very excited. These are my running back rankings for week 1 in half PPR. There are very few stats that I can give you, so this list is not going to be as broken down, as nuanced as it will be as we move forward. I will give you a lot more stats, but week 1, I'm going with my gut. We're also going on draft capital. If you drafted players really high, odds are you're not going to bench them. So this list is kind of going to be a little straightforward, but let's get into it. At number 1, I'm going with Christian McCaffrey at the Steelers. CMC is not a player you're benching. This one should be obvious. But number 2, I'm going with Austin Ekeler versus Miami, my number 2 running back this offseason, and he should catch plenty of passes. He should be very effective. The Dolphins defense should not be able to contain him. But at number 3, I think Bijan Robinson is a must start. You obviously drafted him as such, but versus Carolina, I see the Falcons really dominating and really showing off their new weapon. I think he's going to be extremely effective. He looked amazing in the preseason, and I think he's going to be exactly what we expected when hyping him up so much. So I drafted him on one of my teams. I'm very excited to see this kick off. And Bijan Robinson is my RB3 this week. Should have an elite game. I was tempted to rank him at number 1 overall, but we haven't seen it yet. So a little bit of risk involved, but he's definitely top 5. You cannot bench Bijan Robinson if you drafted him. You also can't bench Nick Chubb versus Cincinnati. He comes in at number 4, and especially against the Bengals, the Browns always play very tough. It's always a very high-scoring affair, and I do not think that the Bengals will be able to stop him. So Nick Chubb probably going to score at least 1 or 2 touchdowns and definitely go over 100 rushing yards. I'm very confident in Nick Chubb this season. This week, he's at number 4. But number 5 is Saquon Barkley versus Dallas. I see the Giants winning this game, definitely on the back of Barkley, and should be a lot of fun on Sunday Night Football. The stars show out, so I'm not benching him. These top 5 names are kind of obvious, kind of the names that you all had inside the top 5 when you were drafting a week ago. But Tony Pollard comes in at number 6, and at the Giants should have a very good game. He's going to be as healthy as he will all season. At this point in time, I'm a little bit worried about the offensive line and their age, but at this moment, everyone is healthy. He should be effective. He is a home run hitter and has plenty of upside. Should have a very, very solid game. So I trust Pollard. Definitely not going to bench him. I'm also starting Derrick Henry. While he does kind of notoriously start kind of slow in the first couple of weeks of the season, if you drafted him in the 2nd or 3rd round, I don't think you can not start him. He should be a top 5 running back over the course of the season as long as he is healthy. I'm a little bit worried about him breaking down as we get to the end of the year, but right now he's definitely a top 10 running back, and you cannot bench Derrick Henry if you drafted him. So keep him in your lineup. At this point, it's kind of straightforward. I'm also going to start Josh Jacobs at Denver. This matchup scares me a little bit. He didn't practice almost at all in the preseason, but he should be fine. It's not that much of a concern. Josh Jacobs, definitely a player you drafted to trust and start. So he comes in at number 8, and he should be pretty solid this week. But at number 9, I have Joe Mixon at Cleveland. I think coming off of that calf strain and some missed time this offseason, Joe Burrow might hand it off a little bit extra. Mixon is also very involved in the passing game, and there's not really anyone behind him that threatens him for touches. So he's a top 10 running back. I trust him. But at number 10, I have Travis Etienne at the Colts. It's possible that he gets benched in the 4th quarter because this game is probably not going to be that competitive at all. So Tank Bigsby might get some work here, but Etienne is the clear number 1. Etienne is the guy you drafted early on in the draft, and you're not going to bench him just because he might get benched in the 4th quarter. If anything, he's probably going to score a touchdown leading up to that point. So trust him. The top 10, I think, are all must-starts this week, and I'm pretty confident in these rankings. But number 11 is where it starts to get interesting. Now there's a little bit more of some nuance and a bit more matchup dependent. But number 11 might shock you. I have Raheem Mostert at the Chargers as a must-start this week. Devon Achane suffered a shoulder injury in the preseason, and Jeff Wilson went on IR a few days ago, and that means there are a ton of touches for Raheem Mostert. He's going to be a true workhorse in week 1 in an amazing matchup. The Chargers defense cannot stop the run. While they did add some pieces this offseason that might help them a little bit, I just have no confidence that they can totally turn it around. If you've been paying attention the last few years in fantasy football, you always start your running backs against the Chargers. So I'm extremely confident in Raheem Mostert this week. And at number 11, I am not benching him. He is an absolute must start. If you drafted him late, good for you. He's going to start off really effective in week 1. He is a top 12 running back, in my opinion. But number 12, I have Rhamondre Stevenson versus Philadelphia. I see a heavy catch-up mode in the second half for the Patriots, and they're going to need to pass it a lot. I see Stevenson catching a lot of passes, a lot of targets for him, and he probably sneaks into the end zone. I see a very close game here for the Patriots versus the Eagles, and Stevenson was drafted high enough where I don't think you want to bench him. So he comes in at number 12. I am starting Rhamondre Stevenson. But number 13 may shock you on this list. I have J.K. Dobbins versus Houston. My RB13 is in a little bit of a committee. However, he is kind of on the hot seat. I feel like they are kind of looking to replace him. If they can, next season they might draft another running back. So I think because of his somewhat of a holdout, he was kind of injured, but he came back after the first week of the preseason. I think J.K. Dobbins has a lot of reason to play well, and I think they're going to give him a ton of touches, see what he can do, because he's been very injured over the course of his career. They're going to see if he can handle a big workload, and this is an elite matchup. The Texans were dead last against defending the run last season. They are an absolutely smash matchup. You have to start your running backs against the Texans, and let's be honest, this is going to be a blowout. There are going to be a lot of touches for the running backs in the second half. The game plan is definitely going to benefit running the ball. So I see a touchdown. I see probably over 100 yards for J.K. Dobbins. I still see like 16 plus points for running backs up to this point. I'm pretty confident in the Baltimore Ravens running back, who averages like 6 yards per carry so far in the NFL. He is a true elite runner, not a heavy contributor in the passing game, though. At number 14, I have Kenneth Walker versus the Rams. And if Cooper Kupp does play, then it might be more competitive. I might bring him down a little bit. But I'm expecting kind of a blowout. I don't see this game being that competitive. And I see a 2-score lead for the Seahawks in the second half. I see a lot of touches for Walker in the run game. So because of volume, I really trust him. I think he will find the end zone. And even if Charbonnet does get a lot of work, I'm not worried about Walker. Especially in week 1, the game script should benefit him. So that's why I have him as a top 15 running back. He was top 10 last year, and he could absolutely repeat that if it wasn't for his backfield running mate in the second round pick, Zack Charbonnet, eating up a lot of touches. So this week, I trust him. We'll see moving forward. Now it's getting a little bit more average, but I think Miles Sanders should have a solid game. He has a 3-down role, and while I do see the Panthers in catch-up mode, I think he will find the end zone. I think he will get into I think he will score a touchdown and get you over that 12, 14-point threshold. I feel somewhat confident in Miles Sanders here as my RB15. But if it wasn't for the workload, I would be a little bit hesitant for Alexander Mattison. I think they're going to see what he can handle week 1, if he can really be that 3-down workhorse for Minnesota. So I see about 20 touches for Mattison, but I don't love the matchup too much. It's really just the volume that's going to carry him, that keeps him this high in the rankings. But I did have Mattison much lower in my pre-draft rankings, and I do see him kind of falling off as the weeks go by. But in week 1, I think he should have a very significant role as they test out how much he can handle. He probably finds the end zone as well. So pretty confident that Mattison scores double-digit touches, double-digit fantasy points, and I have him at number 16. The workload should be solid enough. But at number 17, very interested to see what the rookie running back can do. Jahmyr Gibbs at Kansas City might be too low in my rankings because there's no Jameson Williams. There's going to be a lot of targets for this running back, and it's going to be really interesting to see. They probably want to make that pick look good and make Jahmyr Gibbs a very effective player in week 1. So maybe I'm too low on Gibbs. I kind of want to rank him higher than Mattison, but we have yet to see it in real game action. And while I do see a very high scoring game here, I am tempering expectations just a little bit with Jahmyr Gibbs in week 1. I only have him at 17, but expect him to rise in the rankings. I think he will be a little bit better later on, and I kind of just want to see it before I start believing in it fully and ranking him top 12. So at number 17, I am a little bit hesitant to fully give you the green light. But he's top 20. I'm not benching him. You drafted him high enough to keep him in your lineup. But at number 18, a player who doesn't have the best matchup. The Titans had an elite rushing defense last season, but he gets a ton of touches, a ton of volume, and he should score at least 1 touchdown for the Saints. I got Jamaal Williams at number 18, and I feel very confident in his workload, especially with Kamara suspended for 3 weeks. Jamaal Williams should put up some good points. Very usable fantasy games in those first 3 games. So have him top 20, but at number 19, I have Najee Harris versus San Francisco. Not a good matchup against the Niners, and I think they're going to lean on the passing game a little bit more in this one. Kind of a low-scoring game, so Najee is always kind of a ineffective rusher, not a very high yards per carry for him, and he does become very touchdown dependent in this game. Wouldn't be shocked if that doesn't happen and he doesn't give you more than 10 points. So I'm a little bit worried about Najee Harris this week, but you drafted him high and you're probably going to start him. I do have him top 20, but I'm a little bit worried about it. I'd feel a little more confident if it wasn't against the Niners. But he'll be ranked higher later on. Don't worry. Don't hit the panic button just because you see him ranked this low. Number 20, though, I have Aaron Jones at Chicago, a player that normally dominates the Bears. So I don't see that changing too much, but it is a worse offense overall with Jordan Love. I am a little bit worried about the touchdown possibilities here, but Aaron Jones is going to start to fade down these rankings, possibly get overtaken by A.J. Dillon as we get closer to November, December. But in September, Aaron Jones is fully healthy, should be the leader of this team, definitely a heavy contributor, especially in the passing game. So I will take Aaron Jones at number 20. I think he's worth starting, but kind of on the cusp, kind of close to flex territory here. But now at number 21, I'm going with David Montgomery at Kansas City, and I'm very tempted to rank both of these Detroit Lions running backs higher. However, we just haven't quite seen what this offense totally looks like with the new backfield. I'm not totally sure what the touch split is going to be, and I'm a little bit worried that this game gets a little bit out of hand, turns into a heavy passing game plan, and Montgomery in the run game starts to see fewer and fewer touches in the second half. But I'm tempted to rank both of these Detroit Lions running backs much higher because they should probably both find the end zone. I think they're both players you can trust starting. I just have Montgomery at 21 because I just feel like he's a bit more of a flex play at this exact point in time. But I'm still starting him. That is for sure. I do not want to bench Dave Montgomery. However, at number 22, Dameon Pierce at Baltimore. A little bit worried about this matchup. The Baltimore Ravens should be very well prepared, should be ready to go, and they're going to dominate the Texans. I'm a little bit worried that the Texans offense looks like shit in week 1. But at number 22, I still have him in flex range. He's still worth starting in most formats. But Cam Akers, I have at number 23 at Seattle. Going to get a little bit more work if Cooper Kupp is indeed unavailable, or even if he is, they're probably going to ease him in a little bit and probably lean on the run game a little bit more. See if Akers can continue how he played at the end of last season, if he can truly be the answer as the RB1 for the Rams. So should see a big workload, but I'm not super confident in him, especially finding the end zone. That's going to be very, very tricky. So he's a decent flex play. Have him at number 23, but not a guy I am like dying to start. This is kind of where it starts to drop off, kind of close to that 10-point threshold in terms of my projection this week, but I'm still starting Rachaad White at Minnesota. Rachaad White's just going to get so many touches. The floor is extremely secure. And the Vikings defense isn't that good. Even though the Buccaneers aren't really going to compete in the first half, there should be plenty of garbage time, plenty of receptions for Rachaad White to pick it up in the second half. So going to start him, but this is kind of my cutoff point, pretty close to it at the running back spot. I'd rather start some receivers at flex, given the trends of the NFL in recent history. But at number 25, we're going to see what James Cook can do at the Jets. It's not the best matchup. The Jets defense is very, very difficult. And part of me feels like as much as Cook has been hyped up as the 3-down running back, wouldn't be shocked at all to see the bruiser Latavius Murray steal a lot of goal line touches from him. It's also possible that Josh Allen steals the goal line rushes or just throws it in, and we never see James Cook get a ton of volume on the goal line. So James Cook should have a pretty effective game, pretty solid floor, but I'm worried that he does not score a touchdown in this matchup. That's why I only have him at number 25. But kind of the same situation for Isiah Pacheco, a little touchdown dependent, not a player that we've seen catch a lot of passes in his rookie season. And he did miss some time in training camp. It's possible that they ease him in week 1 and maybe lean a little bit more on the older Jerrick McKinnon as the season begins. But I kind of feel like I'm too low on Pacheco. It's just the fact that he doesn't really catch passes is why I'm a little concerned. He's definitely touchdown dependent. But number 27, I have James Conner at Washington. Should be a pretty effective floor play, but very worried that the touchdowns are just very few and far between this season. However, there should be a lot of volume for James Conner, especially early in the game. So maybe I'm too low on him as well, but my gut tells me you don't want to start too many players in this game. Not excited to watch it. That is for sure. But at number 28, I have Javonte Williams versus the Raiders. Pretty good matchup, but Javonte coming off that injury, I think they will lean on Samaje Perine a little bit more. And without Jerry Jeudy, they're probably going to stack the box and favor the run in terms of the defensive game plan for the Raiders. So a little bit worried about Javonte. He didn't score a single touchdown last season, and I got a bad feeling that continues this week. However, he is still top 30. You could do a lot worse than Javonte Williams. I think he'll just be much better as the season progresses and he starts to get more and more touches, especially in the run game. I think he'll be more heavily favored in the passing game in this matchup. But number 29 on this list is Dalvin Cook. Technically the starter at this point for the Jets. We do not know exactly what to expect from Breece Hall just yet, but the signing of Dalvin Cook definitely signaled that they were going to ease Breece Hall into the mix. So I would rather go with Dalvin Cook if I'm starting a Jets running back this week, but against Buffalo, it's a tough matchup, and I'm a little bit worried about this offensive chemistry as a whole, and that's why at this point I'm kind of trying to bench pretty much all of the running backs moving forward, a little less confident in their ability to put up double-digit fantasy points moving forward, starting with Dalvin Cook. But Khalil Herbert, I have at number 30, and I could be terribly wrong about Khalil Herbert, but he could definitely lose those touchdowns to Justin Fields on the ground. He is in a committee at the end of the day, and it's a little bit hard to say vehemently what to expect from the Bears offense. Maybe Roschon Johnson is a little bit more involved than we expected. Maybe D'Onta Foreman gets some touches as well on the goal line. Khalil Herbert, I kind of want to see it before I fully trust it and fully start him in my lineup with confidence. So just a number 30, kind of tempering expectations, but I might be too low on Khalil Herbert. That is for sure. At number 31, I have A.J. Dillon, who I think will be more and more involved as the season progresses, as Aaron Jones starts to get more and more banged up. But against Chicago, I don't think they win this game, and I have a feeling that they shift a little bit more heavily towards the pass as the game goes on. As we enter the fourth quarter, I think Dillon might be phased out a little bit in terms of the play calling. So only at number 31, he is a low-end flex play. He has more handcuff appeal as the season progresses than starting value in week 1. But number 32 is Breece Hall versus Buffalo, an extremely talented player, but A little bit worried to start him with confidence at the beginning of the season. Coming off of that ACL, they definitely want to take some load off of him and lean on Dalvin Cook a little bit more. So that's why I have Cook ranked higher. But I only have Breece Hall 3 spots lower. So it's not like I'm like terribly low on him. I just have a bad feeling about this overall game. The Bills' rushing defense was one of the best in the NFL last season, and wouldn't be shocked if it remains just as good, and the running backs for the Jets struggle to find the end zone, struggle to put up a lot of yards. So only at number 32, I am benching Breece Hall in week 1. We're going to see how it turns out, and hopefully as soon as week 2, week 3, we can start ranking Breece Hall back inside the top 25, hopefully the top 20 sooner rather than later, because he definitely will emerge as a top 15 running back once he starts to get going. But this week, little hesitant to fully trust him. Number 33, though, I have Samaje Perine versus Las Vegas, and I was genuinely tempted to rank him above Javonte Williams, but I'm not going to do it. I still prefer Javonte, but Samaje should get plenty of touches, a lot of work, especially to start the season. And if you are in a pinch, if you need someone that's a backup running back that should have a solid role, I think Samaje Perine is a sneaky start in week 1. But at number 33, I'm probably going to hold off, probably going to keep him on the bench. He has more handcuff appeal than start appeal at the beginning of the season. But number 34, I got Bijan Robinson versus the Cardinals, and I might be too low on Bijan Robinson because there should be a lead for the Commanders. He should get plenty of touches in the second half, but he's rather touchdown dependent. He doesn't catch a ton of passes, and it's a little bit hard to fully gauge what this offense is going to look like with new offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy. They also don't have Terry McLaurin fully healthy, dealing with a turf toe injury, and Sam Howell could also vulture the rushing touchdowns himself. So I kind of want to see it in Washington before I trust Bijan Robinson, kind of a reluctance to rank him higher, even though I kind of feel like maybe I should. Number 35, though, I have DeAndre Swift at New England, and as much as I want to trust him, I can't say that I know what to expect from this Eagles backfield. If anything, it's possible that Kenny Gainwell is the most valuable, is the most used running back in this trio, because it could be Swift, it could be Penny, it could be Gainwell. I really have no idea. I want to see it before I fully endorse it. And Swift is very talented, but he could get injured at any point in time. So week 1, I'm just reluctant to fully endorse. Jalen Hurts could always just vulture the rushing touchdowns, and Swift could do nothing. So at number 35, we'll see what happens here, but I'd rather bench him in week 1. Hard to trust this Eagles backfield right out of the gate. But number 36, I have Jerrick McKinnon versus Detroit. I'm tempted to rank him higher because he is healthy and he should get some work in the passing game. But it's a Chiefs running back. Hard to fully gauge what to expect. And it's not like you drafted him really high. It's hard to say that you are really counting on McKinnon to carry you. So I'd rather keep him on the bench, rather not fully trust it just yet. But number 37 is the last starting running back that I will have ranked. It's Deon Jackson versus Jacksonville of the Colts. There's no Jonathan Taylor. He is on IR to start the season, and Deon Jackson should get the most touches in this backfield, but I'm very, very reluctant to have any confidence in this backfield, especially with Anthony Richardson stealing so much work in the run game. So don't expect him to score. Don't expect him to put up over 10 points. I think Deon Jackson is kind of just a waiver wire pickup that you should make only if you are desperate, if you are trying to replace Jonathan Taylor, or just keep him away from somebody else because you are thin at that position. I am not starting him week 1. That is for sure. I want to see what this offense looks like before I trust him. But number 38, I got Zack Charbonnet versus the Rams. Maybe he'll be more involved, but I think this is more of a Kenneth Walker game. Charbonnet profiles as more of the third down, passing down running back, and maybe he gets some garbage time if the Rams are really that uncompetitive. But I'd rather pass on Charbonnet this week. I'd rather keep him on the bench. I'm also keeping Antonio Gibson on the bench. Hard to fully trust what to expect in Washington, and if anything, I think they want to move off of him and give Bijan Robinson more of a 3-down role this season so that they don't need to lean on Gibson very much. So hard to know exactly what to expect there, but at number 40, I have Jaylen Warren versus San Francisco. I am worried that Warren is going to steal a lot of touches from Najee Harris, especially on third down. It could be more of a 60-40 split, as it's been rumored to be the case, and I might be too low on Jaylen Warren, but I'm not starting him. I want to see what this backfield looks like, and I'm going to trust that Najee Harris remains the clear starter and a top 20 play in fantasy football, but Warren is very, very interesting long-term in the Steelers backfield. But let's just go rapid fire through the top 50. At number 41, I got Rachaad Penny, followed by Kenny Gainwell, number 42. Hard to tell who is really the leader in this backfield. I feel like Kenny Gainwell, based on draft capital, might be the most valuable of the three. We will see what it looks like in week one, but I'm not starting either of them until that's sorted out. But then Gus Edwards has a great matchup against Houston. If you are in a desperate spot, maybe a very deep league, I would consider it just because the matchup is so good, but he's extremely touchdown dependent. Don't expect more than 10 points without it. But then Tank Bigsby could get some garbage time himself. He's kind of interesting. I mentioned that with Etienne, but I am not confident enough to start Bigsby in week one, that is for sure. Zeke should have a decent role, could score a touchdown, but you are playing with fire when it comes to these backups. So only at number 45, we will see what this backfield split looks like in New England. But at number 46, I think Algier could look like a little bit of an afterthought if Bijan Robinson is really that good. But at least for the moment, he is somewhat interesting, at least has handcuff appeal, that is for sure. Same goes with Elijah Mitchell. Don't expect a ton from him, but CMC could always go down, so you probably want to roster him if you need depth at the position. And then Roschon Johnson, Tyjae Spears, and Chris Evans are the last three handcuffs I have ranked inside the top 50, and we will see what happens this week. But those are my top 50 running back rankings for the running back position. I guess actually these are only the top 40. I'm definitely starting the top 10 with confidence, and I feel like everyone inside the top 15 through Miles Sanders will get you a minimum of 12 fantasy points. I think it's going to be a little bit more touchdown dependent after that fact, but I think once you get to Rachaad White, expect at least 9-10 points from all those players. I think there's going to be a very solid floor for each of them, pretty solid workloads, and the volume should carry you to definitely usable fantasy games. But starting with James Cook, I'm starting to ideally start to bench these players. I don't think they will guarantee you a touchdown, and without it, you're not going to get more than 8 points. So only in deeper formats am I dying to start them, but those are the flex plays. Once we hit DeAndre Swift, everyone below DeAndre Swift at number 36, starting with Jerrick McKinnon, are the clear bench plays. In my opinion, I'd rather not start any of them. I'd much rather pivot to wide receiver. And if you want my wide receiver rankings, that'll come out tomorrow, and I look forward to that video. If you enjoyed this one, hit that like button for me, subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and all of your weekly rankings as well. So that's it for this one. My name is Adam Riancho, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Nice and blunt.